Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Heyman Marrero from Urbander, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from You Do You. Welcome, everybody, to this episode. And I just thought that it was very important to address a topic that is front and center in our lives, not only here in the U.S., but also across the world, because I think collectively, we're experiencing a lot of loss and a lot of grief. And so I wanted to invite onto the show my dear friend, Eva Pagán Hill. Welcome, Eva. How are you?
Hi, Sami. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And I wanted to invite Eva because she's like, to me, like the guru, like the most knowledgeable person that I know regarding grief, mourning, and bereavement. She has almost 30 years of experience on mental health care and all types of, loss and management of your mental wellness and your feelings and family dynamics and relationships. She writes a column for now almost 2 decades.
Since 2000.
Since the year 2000.
December of 2000.
Look at that. Fortaleciendo familias in Spanish.
Strengthening families.
Yes, strengthening families in La Prensa newspaper here in Central Florida. And she's just been a very valuable resource to the community in different aspects, from a professional, community service, in the corporate sector, and just edifying families and helping them get through, right, the process of grieving and loss. Thank you, Eva, for being here with us. And I know that you've mentioned to me that people use grief, mourning, and bereavement indiscriminately, like, or interchangeably, but they're completely. Please tell me, what are the differences?
The word grief encompasses the feeling of loss after any loss. It could be job, could be house, could be relationship, could be death, could be health, could be right now. You and I were talking a while ago about Hispanics having the loss of being able to hug and care about each other the way we normally do in the time of COVID. That's grief. Mourning is the outward expression of grief. It is the crying, it is the anger, it is the rituals, the wearing the black, having the services. And bereavement is the time and that you are going through these emotions. So they are related, but not exactly the same. So I have been bereavement manager, bereavement counselor, which means I follow people after the loved one has died. And in working for any hospice, normally they are followed for about a year, because we try to offer them support in all the major milestones, birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, etc. So that process is a continuum, not a 1, 2, 3. For years, it's interesting because even though in the field, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who did a great service, has not been followed for the stages, because grief does not come in stages. And Sami, you lost your father a while back, and you know that it's not today I am numb, tomorrow I am in denial, tomorrow I'm angry, tomorrow I'm crying, tomorrow I'm okay. That's not how it goes.
It doesn't.
It's really more like a roller coaster
Mm-hmm.
that you go up and down and up and down. And many times you think, oh, I'm doing fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden you have a grief attack.
Yes.
And I have this lady called me yesterday. Why am I crying so much today when I was doing so good?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Because today is the day that is the anniversary of when he was diagnosed.
Mm.
And it's been
Mm-hmm.
almost a year.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic. And we in the United States, after September 11th, a columnist called Kathleen Parker referred to us as the Microwave Society.
Mm.
And we want everything quick. 1, 2,
Immediately.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And people will ask you, you have right now, you have generations that have not experienced a death close by,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
I have a 27-year-old whose father died, and her friends don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you still grieving? It's been 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
they have not experienced it.
Right.
And so then you add the time of COVID, where we're wanting to reopen the the society, the business,
Mm-hmm.
the everything. People are walking around without masks, like nothing happens. Uh, and the family's heart is breaking.
Yeah.
I've had several say to me, it is disrespectful to my parent that died or my sibling that died. And it's disrespectful to me to
Mm-hmm.
minimize the impact of this illness
Mm-hmm.
on us.
Mm-hmm.
And so uh,
And that I can only imagine, but you tell me, since you have direct contact with these families and are trying to help them get through, this process of loss. Does it intensify their grief when they see others not following the rules, or not, or
yes,
mm,
the grief has several emotions, and many
mhm,
people think of the crying. But
right.
anger is a very big part
Mm-hmm.
of the grief process. Um,
And
why did it have to
irritation.
happen?
Right. And irritation too. Like if people become like very sensitive and highly irritated also.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that, yeah.
I have no patience for nonsense, one
Mm-hmm.
told me the other week.
Mm-hmm.
Another said, I feel hollow inside. I can't watch the news because I just want to scream. You
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And so when you see, traditionally, any grief, if you look at the symptoms of normal grief that I sent you, that you can
Yes.
share with the listeners and viewers, um, anger is there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a wife whose husband died right before they closed us down, and he fixed everything. And one day she's vacuuming,
Mm-hmm.
and it messes up, and she threw it clear across the room. Why are you not here to fix it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a part of it.
Yeah.
And then on top, and many times we look at people who have their loved one, be it a mother or a father, and we get angry at them.
Mm-hmm.
No, why
Mm-hmm.
do you have yours and I don't have mine?
Right.
And then then you add this to this collective grief,
Mm-hmm.
collective fear, collective loss of security of life, loss of employment, loss of financial possibilities, because some don't have lost everything,
And
their
then if
job
you
and
add
everything.
on that the
The
social
death of,
justice, and then also social justice inequities, and that other whole
oh
other
yeah,
level,
that's a whole ball.
whole of, yes.
And then and let's talk about that briefly. Right now there are people out in the streets not only protesting because of the death of the different individuals, but this disrespect that has happened. And if you look at it, number one, it's been made a political
Mm-hmm.
issue. And number two, all this going out and not wanting to wear masks and wanting to open, once they said that it was the communities of color that were dying at higher
Right.
proportions,
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like the larger community, the white people, went out and said, this is not going to affect us. That's a disease for them. So we don't care.
Right.
So
Mhm.
that adds insult to injury.
Right.
When really and truly, this illness does not discriminate. But these are the people that are out there working, cleaning the hospitals, driving the buses, doing whatever, don't have access to health care,
Mhm.
don't have the resources
Mhm.
to to stay at home in the air conditioner and
Right. Work
complain.
remotely. Yeah, work
Yeah,
remotely.
yeah, remotely and complain because the delivery didn't come on time.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
they don't have that access.
Mhm.
They many live in places where, because of their income, two families are living together, so they
Right.
don't have that ability to isolate within the house if they
Right.
could be there. So
Right.
there's a whole bunch of factors that add complication
Mhm.
to their fear of
Mhm.
their own health, and at the same time their loss when it happens. Then
Yeah.
you add the other complication. You can't be with your loved one in the hospital. You
Oh.
can't hold their hands.
Yeah.
You can't be there. And you can only look at them like you and I are looking at ourselves right now
Mhm.
when your heart is breaking.
Yeah.
You know? Could
Mhm.
you imagine?
No.
No, you can't
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
Then here comes the next clincher.
Mhm.
My loved one died, and the plan was to take the body to Puerto Rico or take the body up north, but I can't do it.
Mhm.
So I have to choose, even though it might not be something that we're okay with, cremation.
Mhm.
And then to have a funeral,
Mhm.
you have to have a permit from the city or county, and only maximum of 10 people can be at the service outdoors, not
Right.
the wake. And the funeral has a very important piece in your grief. People
Mm.
come to share with you, to hold you, to offer their support,
Mhm.
you know, to
Mhm.
validate the life of your loved one. I remember going to your father's funeral,
Yeah. Yeah.
hearing the stories of how he impacted their lives.
Mhm.
That's what funerals are about. And you laugh at stories and you cry and you share, and that's
Yeah.
not there. I have
Mhm.
several widows whose kids are in another state and they're all alone, lonely, cannot even have a relationship with their friends
Mhm.
because they're all older,
Isolated. And so that,
isolated.
oh my goodness. So then go, because you're right. I mean, when I lost my father, it was, and you know how close we were, right?
Yes.
And I was so thankful that you made the effort to go all the way up in the mountain of Cialis. You found us, right, in Puerto Rico.
Yes.
You found us, and it was great that to
I even
see.
wrote a column about him.
Yes, you did write a column about it, and you're right. I feel like I think part of my the intensity of my grief was that he passed away in Puerto Rico and I couldn't be there. I was actually scheduled to go see him while
Mhm.
he was getting chemo the week after he passed away, and I was so angry. I was like, I mean, when I heard that he passed, the very Friday before, I was leaving on a Friday after, my reaction was like, fuck, I didn't make it. I was just so angry. It was just,
And
I just thinking about it, I want to, like, it's been 2 years now. I can talk about it without losing it. But I felt completely at a loss and cheated out of the opportunity
and
to
you
hold him.
multiply that
Yeah,
by
yes.
120,000. I don't know how many are the dead
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
but over
Yeah.
120,000.
Yes.
You
Over
know,
120,000,
so
and the
all these
projection. Yeah.
family members
Yes.
are feeling that same feeling, and as the loved one lays in this hospital, and you know that you should be there, there's this feeling of impotence,
Yes.
and so your world is totally shaken. And here are these fools
Mm-hmm.
disrespecting. This is a hoax. Nobody really has died. How can you say that? Where's your empathy? Where's
Mm-hmm.
your caring? You
Mm-hmm.
may not have experienced it, but then again, nothing becomes real
Mm-hmm.
unless you've had it.
Exactly. Yeah. Until it comes
Yeah.
knocking at your door. Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
all of these feelings are valid. All of these
Yes.
feelings will come and go. Everything under the sun. All of the feelings you could possibly imagine are okay to experience. But then there's also, I in this chart that you sent me, it talks about, thoughts, like how it affects your performance, how, like, so, like, you
You can't
you you can't
concentrate.
concentrate, you're confused, you have dreams, you have this sense of like you're gonna freaking lose it, right? Yeah, sense
I see, and I don't like words like lose it and broke down. Those
okay,
are shameful words.
okay,
You
so
know,
then
when you lose it,
it's like it's wrong, like it's
it's wrong.
wrong, right?
And
So
broke down, when something breaks, you get rid of it. But
yeah,
those are the words we use. You
yeah,
just cried. You just expressed your
yeah,
emotions,
mm-hmm,
You
yeah,
just felt super duper uber sad.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
let's talk about the sleeping. I love the sleeping because people tell you stay busy. And so you're
yes,
busy all day, and then you get to bed and you conk out. You're out
yeah,
like a light.
yeah,
3 in the morning.
hmm.
3 in the morning,
Mm-hmm,
magic number. I
yeah,
always used to joke in presentations that we should have support groups at 3 in the morning.
yeah,
Your body has rested enough, and your subconscious mind says, hey, it's time to grieve. And
mm-hmm,
you wake up crying, you wake up thinking, and
mm-hmm.
then to get back to sleep, it's very
Impossible.
difficult.
Yeah.
So then here you go to work the next day, because guess how much they give you from work? 3 days. 3 days bereavement, if
Mm-hmm.
they are a good employer, because
Mm-hmm.
some don't even give you that, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And in 3 days, you're supposed to be up to par, ready to go and
Mm-hmm.
rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
When
And so
really,
how do we navigate that though? How
well,
do mm-hmm.
my job,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, is to validate and normalize your grief process. This is normal. This is valid. What you're feeling is not a bad thing. It is
Mm-hmm.
just what you do when you lose someone. Now, the other part of my job is provide comfort, emotional comfort and support, and then to encourage safe self care. Because the intensity of any emotion um, impacts your immune system.
Mm-hmm.
Many caregivers get sick after the loss or the emotion so intense that your
Mm-hmm.
immune system opens you up to all kinds of
Yeah.
uh, the worst flu ever and so on, and here in the time of COVID.
Yeah.
So what I talk about is I teach breathing and relaxation techniques. I encourage the person to make sure they eat right, because
Mm-hmm.
many either eat too much or don't want to eat at all.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if you're not eating, try to get the nutrients through Ensure, etc. If you're not sleeping, let's practice the relaxation and breathing so that at least you tell your subconscious mind, I need to rest my body.
Mm-hmm.
You may not need to sleep. You need to give permission to feel, because another of the problem is when you start feeling, you do like the jack in the box. You push it down and you push it down, you push it down. What's going to happen?
It's gonna
It's
pop out.
gonna pop out
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the worst moment,
The worst time and in the worst way. Yes.
in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of a presentation,
Yeah.
when all of a sudden somebody says a word and it goes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I encourage also journaling. Write what you're feeling. Oh, I didn't get to tell my loved one, da da da. Well, write it down. What are your beliefs? Do you believe there's an afterlife? Do you believe the person is in heaven, write it down. And if you don't, you write it for yourself. Because
Mhm.
guess who and then many religions will say, oh, if you're crying, you're not a true Christian, you're not a true whatever, because they're in heaven. You're not crying for them. You're crying for you,
Mhm.
because you miss them, because
Right.
your life has this
Altered.
big hole without
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Mhm.
And think about it. You go visit your family in another state.
Mhm.
Me, for
Mhm.
years, my sons and granddaughters in Puerto Rico, I'd go visit them. The first half hour in the plane, I'd be crying because I was going to miss the recital. I was going to miss this.
Mm.
And I knew I was going to see them. And I knew I could do with all today's technology, this video calls. But still, I
Mhm.
grieved. So
Yes.
imagine if I'm never going to see them again.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Mhm. Yeah,
You know?
definitely.
So give
Yeah.
yourself permission to do so. And you can find some resources on the internet
Mhm.
that help you. Talk about it. The problem is, who do you talk about it to?
Mhm.
Find someone. Many family members or friends don't want you to talk about it because they don't want to think about going through what you're doing. Well, then talk to someone that's professional. There's no weakness in
Mhm.
in seeking help. There's
Mhm.
none.
Mhm.
There's bereavement specialists, there's counselors. Um, find someone that you can share. And to the friends, there is a whole list of things we can do. At funerals, people say, call me if you need me. Did you
Right.
call anybody, Sammy? Did you
No.
call anybody? No. So
Mm.
don't wait to be called.
Mhm.
Show up. Come with a
Mhm.
casserole.
Mhm.
Offer to drive someone. Be there for them. You know?
Mhm.
So allow them to talk. You don't have to fix it. All you
Mhm.
have to do is be present.
And listen. Yeah.
Listen,
Mhm.
listen to
Mhm.
them, allow
Mhm.
them. And
Mhm.
so seek the right person when you're
Mhm.
grieving. Try to take care of yourself in ways that are healthy. Try not to go drinking or taking drugs. It's interesting because many people will be grieving and they say, I'm depressed.
Mhm.
No, you're not. There's
Mm.
depression, which is a clinical diagnosis,
Mhm.
and there's grief.
Mhm.
Sadness and depression may have similar symptoms,
Mhm.
but they're not the same.
Mhm.
And so you take an antidepressant,
And it's not going to work.
it's dealing with the imbalance of endorphins that you do not have.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, if you're not sleeping well, try do more the natural stuff, the chamomile tea, whatever. Because if you keep using drugs, you're just stuffing the pain. You're numbing the pain, but it's gonna come out.
Yeah, like the Jack in the Box that you mentioned
It's
before.
gonna come
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Mhm.
So do exercise, go walking, take find a list of things to take care of yourself. And to the friends, find a list of things you could really do to help.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah. Mhm. Definitely.
And
You know what helped me a lot when I finally was able to like speak to people, in the weeks after Buffy's passing, was talking to his friends and
mhm,
talking to people that were maybe like 3 levels removed. So they weren't like family members or the
mm,
closer friends that are like extended family, right? But that like my dad's boss for many years. And so I reached when they said call when they did say call me if you need anything, I did muster up the courage to call them. I took their word for it, right? Eventually. And they said, I want you to tell me a story, like something. I just wanted to hear about, like stories about my father from a different perspective or different angle, from his work or other places and things he did that I wasn't front and center, like front row seat, watching him, be as great as he was. So So
Many people will hide the pictures. Many people don't want to talk about it because it
yeah,
hurts.
yeah,
Come on, it's going to hurt anyway. But
yeah.
then, and I've always said, this is not a new thing. I've always said, at the beginning, you think about the illness of the and the death, and that is this.
Mhm.
That is this.
Yeah,
You forget this.
yeah,
The whole life. The
yeah,
whole life.
yeah.
And the biggest task we have is going from presence to memory.
Mhm,
And it is those stories, it is
mhm,
those memories that will eventually comfort you.
mm,
And you never get over a loss.
mhm,
You don't move on.
mhm,
The Americans have a very business-like work that for us means totally different. You
mhm,
reconcile.
mhm.
For us, reconcile is to balance a statement.
Yeah.
But really, what so the easier word to understand is you learn to live in spite of.
Mhm.
But there'll be recurrences. You'll
Yeah.
hear a song. You'll have it's picture an operation. Okay. You have the acute pain
Mhm.
and the scar is raw.
Yeah.
And eventually it starts healing, but you always have that scar. And
Mhm.
when it gets ready to rain, that scar kind of bothers you.
Yeah.
I mean, Puerto
Yeah.
Ricans, we are the kings and queens. We have a word. We have a salsa for it. It's
Yeah.
called barrunto. And Willie
Mhm.
Colon sings barrunto en mi corazón, which
Right.
means that feeling that my scar is hurting in my heart. And so
Mhm.
you hear a song or you say a saying. My dad died many moons ago,
Mhm.
and I quote him all the time. And all of a sudden, I'll say it in a certain saying, because I was a daddy's girl like you were. Yeah. And I get like the old song. I'm dating myself, very dated.
Yeah.
Smoke gets in my eyes. Smoke
Mhm.
gets in my eyes. But so you need to have some rituals.
Yeah.
Maybe your sister and you can call each other wherever you are and tell a joke.
Mhm.
Mommy loves her wine, so get a wine glass out and toast
Yeah.
for mommy. I don't even know all the toasts
Yeah.
she said.
Yeah.
Um, have rituals that
Mhm.
comfort you
Mhm.
because we have become a de-ritualized society.
Mm.
Before, when people wore black, or in the American society, they put black wreaths in the front of their
Mhm.
door, George
Mhm.
Jones Country and Western Song. Everybody knew that family is hurting.
Mhm.
Today,
You can't.
we
Yeah.
don't.
Right.
So make your rituals,
Yeah.
honor them in a certain way, donate in their name, uh, volunteer in something that they like to do, write
Mhm.
their story. If you
Yeah.
look at a lot of bestsellers that have been written are about people telling the story of the journey of the parent they loved or the husband they loved.
Mhm.
Do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that helps you.
Yeah.
It helps you. But once again, there's no magic solution.
Yes, absolutely. Now, one of the thing that also in the material that you sent me was about the physical aspect, right? That sometimes
Oh,
you could feel lack of energy, weakness, or tension. You could feel even when like the pandemic started just recently, like 4 months ago. That first week, I felt like a tightness in the chest. I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh my God, I got this thing. Like I thought I caught COVID. And I realized that it was because I was watching TV, the news all the time. And I was watching what was happening in other countries, that they were having like these mass funerals and with the bodies. And it was just, I feel like it was affecting me physically. And so
you,
that's also,
you were
part of it, right?
experiencing, by watching all that, you were experiencing what's called secondary trauma. But
Okay.
grief is not only an emotional
Okay.
situation, it is physical, like you said. And we had talked about eating and sleeping and so on,
Mhm.
and getting sick
Mhm.
because your immune system. It is spiritual. Many people get very angry at God and talk about a lot of guilt related to that. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? God has big shoulders. He can take it. He can take it. And it is normal grief.
Yeah.
Because I got very angry at God and at my father for getting sick and leaving me,
Mm.
and angry at God for allowing it to happen. And then when I started working with hospice, guess what I learned?
Mm.
Normal grief.
Yeah.
So grief is all of the above. And then you have another component that's financial for many people.
Mhm.
We have a dear friend together that when her husband died, all of a sudden, she was 55 years old.
Mhm.
She didn't qualify for his retirement. She didn't qualify for Social Security.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so all she had was her small payment of her job for the years that went on until she turned 62. And then she qualified for his insurance and then for Social Security.
Wow.
So that's another loss that a lot of people don't talk about, the financial, the status, the role. Okay. When you lose a child, am I still a mother?
Mhm.
Am I still a mother? Yes,
Mhm.
you are. Yes, you
Mhm.
are.
Mhm.
When you use your husband and you are traveling around with all couples,
Mhm.
I'm no longer a wife. I've lost my circle of friends because I am the third, fifth, or whatever
Or seventh
odd
wheel.
number
Yeah.
wheel, you know?
Right.
I've my am I a daughter? I remember a friend of ours also whose mother died at 100.
Mhm.
And people say, oh, they were too old. No, you grieve. And her father had died like 3 years later. And she says to me when I called to offer my condolences, she says, Eva, I am now an orphan.
Mm.
You know, that
Yeah.
is a big word.
Yeah.
So I don't have my mother with me. I don't have my father with me. The people that knew me since I was one cell are no
Mhm.
longer there. The ones that knew my whole story are
Yeah.
not there. So I always encourage people to write their stories, to leave those legacies written. And we also need to, another program you might want to do is about um, having the conversation of what do you want me to do if I'm dying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People don't talk about, I don't want to talk about it. You're never going to die. Yes, we are.
Mhm.
We haven't talked about children's grief, how do children grieve. They ask questions. Are you going to die? Oh, my child's obsessed with death. No, they want to know who's going to take care of me if you're not there. So adults grieve, children grieve. If you love someone, you're going to grieve.
Yes. Absolutely.
And then, of course, you have a bunch of disenfranchised griefs. If I'm the ex-wife or the ex-husband, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
If I am a friend,
Mhm.
if I am in a same-sex relationship today, thank God, they have the marriage and they have the partner registry. Before, the families couldn't even allow them to go into the hospital.
Yeah.
So there's so many aspects of grief that we can touch. But main thing, manage yourself by taking care of yourself in spite of your turmoil. That there's one handout I sent you that has the bell curve of how books say we grieve and the reality. We're a mess. We are a mess.
Yeah.
We are a
This
mess.
one here. Yeah, this
So
is
take
the
care of
reality of the situation, right? And
Yeah.
but this is how they try to explain it, right? Yeah.
Can you show him the photo of the person with the rocks?
Yes.
That is a powerful one.
Yeah, this is a powerful one too.
It is,
But it's basically a person that's kneeling down, and his whole or the individual's whole body is just like a sock of rocks, like river rocks, and the figure can't hold itself upright because the weight of these
the grief.
rocks is so overwhelming, and that is how physically grief would look like.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what you want to go online. I found this one, 7 Steps of Managing Grief. But really what it is is taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
There's another one, 5 steps of managing big emotions. And you're going to find that they're all simple. Practice relaxation techniques, take 3 breaths, count slowly. No, and remember, we don't breathe right, guys.
Yeah.
I have a friend that made a bunch of money having workshops for $125 teaching people how to grieve, how to breathe. Because we breathe real quick. We need to take it in through our nose and let it out like a straw. Slowly. If you do that several times a day, when you're having a bunch of stress around that you can't focus on your task, grief related or not, do it. And all of a sudden you start focusing.
Yeah.
You know? And so there are pointers that within this turmoil, take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. Yes. And also being mindful that there are over, over 100,000 families, and the projections are, that at least 200,000 families, by the fall, that will be impacted by this overwhelming sense of loss that is bigger and wider and longer than what you normally would expect because of the isolation, right?
That and then there's a big word. There's a big word that people throw back and forth, but they really don't do it. It's empathy. Take a moment to think, how would I feel if this was happening to me? How, and ask people, how can I be of help? Teach me how your grief is so that I can understand and offer you the support you need. Don't say, I don't want to think about it. Take a moment, because we say such stupid things that hurt, that cut people in the heart. Think about, how would you want to be helped? Think about it. Take that moment.
Yeah. And in the workplace too,
more so in the workplace.
Yeah, more so in the workplace. I mean, people are expected to perform and put on a strong, facade, or face to get through. And sometimes we think that that's a tool. Like, oh yeah, I'm glad I'm busy. But also employers should be more mindful, right? Of of everything you've just shared with us. And
a true leader is mindful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eva, for, coming on, for sharing all of this. I think it's going to be very helpful for people who listen and watch, you share all of this expertise and all of this guidance, really, because I think it's not spoken about enough. And I honestly, and I hate to say this, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And so every little bit counts to help us get through this. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. Bye bye. Dios te bendiga.
Amén. Gracias a ti también. Un beso.
This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.